6 months ago, Jim Ratcliffe and Norman Foster unveiled what they called the world's most iconic football stadium for Manchester United, or what would be. A bold 100,000-seater capacity venue with a massive canopy that would make United Stadium immediately recognisable from anywhere in the world. The reaction was mixed. Some loved it, many compared it to a circus tent. And now that design may already be dead. Behind the scenes, United are facing a £350 million problem that's forcing them back to the drawing board. So what's actually happening with the new United Stadium? Let me explain exactly how we got here and what happens next. To understand where we are now, we do need to go back to March 2024 when Ratcliffe and Foster unveiled that new stadium vision. The proposed stadium would hold 100,000 fans. It would be the largest club stadium in the country by some distance, and the brief to Norman Foster was simple. Build the world's most iconic football stadium, a stadium where, when anybody in the world sees it, they'll know it's Manchester United. The centrepiece of the vision was a vast canopy. Foster's team explained that the three prongs, combined with a long walkway to the east of the stadium, were meant to symbolise the trident on the club crest. Ratcliffe gave the design a 10 out of 10. Yeah, of course he would. That was the dream, the Eiffel Tower of football stadiums, but the reaction on social media was brutal.
Oh, there goes that dream.
It was labelled a circus tent and an eyesore, completely out of place in Manchester. Though some people did love the ambition of it, either way, it certainly got people talking. There was always a massive obstacle standing in the way of it though, and it wasn't just a £2 billion price tag for the project, it was the land. To build this stadium with its enormous canopy, United needed to purchase a significant amount of land to the west of the current Old Trafford. Now much of this land is owned by Freightliner, a rail freight company that operates a terminal on the site. The project also included space for reportedly 15,000 to 17,000 new homes and the complete regeneration of the Old Trafford area. The government had identified infrastructure investment in the north of England as a strategic priority, and Ratcliffe positioned this as a project of national significance. Chancellor Rachel Reeves gave her back into the plans, but backing and actual funding, they're two different things. 6 months on from the March unveiling, there's been no concrete commitment from the government on financial assistance. And crucially, there's been no agreement with Freightliner. And here's where it gets messy. Freightliner is demanding around £400 million for the land, according to sources familiar with the negotiations. United have projected the cost will be in the region of £50 million. Quite a gap. Now, Freightliner is willing to relocate their freight terminal to a new site, but they're holding out for a major windfall. I suppose why wouldn't they? They know United desperately need the land, and they're in the strongest negotiating position possible. This could be where it all falls apart. $50 million to $400 million, that's more of a ransom demand than a negotiation. And United are stuck because they can't just walk away. The whole regeneration project depends on this land. So what are the options now? The impasse with Freightliner has forced United to consider alternatives. And this is where that canopy design starts to disappear. New drawings are being worked on that show the vast umbrella scrapped completely. The updated designs are described as being more in line with traditional stadium appearances. The logic is simple. Without the canopy, they need less land. Less land means less dependency on Freightliner. Less dependency means they can potentially move forward more quickly. Various options over the precise location of the stadium structure are being explored, and each would require different amounts and configurations of land. Foster's original design is still technically an option, but the contingency plans without the canopy are gaining traction as the practical solution. Now, United told the Fans Forum in June that they remain excited by Foster and Partners' vision, but emphasised it was conceptual and that detailed architectural work would follow. They were careful with their language. The March designs were illustrative concepts meant to help shape thinking rather than final plans. In reality, these concepts may have served another purpose, generating public excitement and political pressure to unlock government funding and land deals. 6 months later, with neither secured, maybe reality is setting in. We're potentially going from the world's most iconic to the world's most traditional new stadium. It's quite a climb down. The canopy was divisive, expensive, and ultimately just for show, and maybe a more grounded approach is actually what's going to happen here. But wait, has there been a breakthrough? In recent weeks, United officials have carried out what has been described as constructive discussions with Freightliner, and the club are now optimistic about striking a deal within the next few months. So what's changed? The threat of a compulsory purchase has likely helped focus minds. United believe the government could ultimately intervene to set a fair price, and a lengthy compulsory purchase process wouldn't be in anyone's interest. If a deal does get struck, it would mean United could press ahead with Foster's original plans, the giant canopy, the 100,000 capacity stadium, the full vision. So where does this leave United and their fans? The truth is, everything is very much up in the air currently, and negotiations are far from over. There are other complications beyond just the land negotiations we need to consider. United have not yet formally appointed Foster and Partners to follow through as the stadium architects. A tender process is underway, which suggests either United want to keep their options open, or they're concerned about Foster's availability. Industry sources speculate that Foster and Partners' small stadium team will be busy working on the new San Siro in Milan. And then of course there's the overall funding picture. The stadium was originally estimated at £2 billion, but that's just for the venue itself. The wider regeneration project we know would cost significantly more, and United are not in a position to fund this alone, which is why government support is so crucial. And they're looking at unconventional ways to raise funds. United are exploring the introduction of personal seat licenses as part of the financing plan. What actually is a personal seat license? Now, it gives the supporter the right to buy tickets for a specific seat over a set period. Not a ticket itself, not a season ticket, but a form of membership or ownership right tied to the seat. You pay a one-off license fee to own your seat. You still have to buy a season ticket each year to attend matches. Stop buying the season ticket, you lose your license. These are widely used in American sports, particularly the NFL, as a way to raise funds up front for stadium construction. But no European football club has ever implemented this system. If United proceeded, it would be the first ever in European football. Now, this is uncharted territory, and it absolutely stinks if you ask me. There isn't any other way you can paint this other than charging United fans twice for the same seat, and fans themselves paying more for the stadium rather than the club funding it elsewhere. I think it's an absolutely awful idea. United have been clear that the construction of the stadium is their responsibility, but they require government support for enabling work and public infrastructure around it, particularly for relocating the Freightliner terminal. Now, Mayor Andy Burnham, who sits on the Old Trafford Regeneration Task Force, said in August that talks with Freightliner were far from being concluded. He did mention that the Greater Manchester Combined Authority had approved a development corporation with compulsory purchase powers if needed. This is essentially the nuclear option of forcing a sale. A compulsory purchase could be used as a stick in negotiations. The government could force Freightliner to sell at a fair price, but using those powers might be considered controversial. It would set a precedent and could damage relationships with other developers. It's an option, but maybe not one they'd rather use. And in late September 2025, another complication actually emerged. Shipping giant CMA CGM, headquartered in Marseille with UK operations in Liverpool, agreed a deal to buy Freightliner's UK rail and road operations. The takeover is scheduled to close early next year, pending regulatory approval. What this means for the Old Trafford talks is completely unclear. Will the new owners be more willing to negotiate? Will they see the land as an even more valuable asset now they've just bought the company? Will it reset negotiations entirely? Well, CMA CGM declined to comment on individual depots when asked about their plans for the Manchester terminal, so United are in wait-and-see mode yet again. The architect's hopes, communicated back in March, to begin the project in 2025 now appear highly unlikely. We're approaching 2026, and they haven't even formally appointed a stadium architect yet, let alone secured the land or broken ground. So we're heading into 2026, and there's no real concept of when construction will start. These mega projects always take longer than planned, but this is starting to feel like it might never happen, at least not in the form we thought it would. There is some progress happening, even if it's slow though. The Old Trafford Regeneration Mayoral Development Corporation was recently approved by the Trafford Council and the Greater Manchester Combined Authority. It will be chaired by Lord Coe and formally established following parliamentary approval. This public body is viewed as critical to the overall development of the area. That's the political and administrative infrastructure being put in place. The transformation of Old Trafford has moved a step closer with the approval of the Development Corporation, but the actual stadium, which is the centrepiece of the entire project, remains stuck in limbo. Here's the honest truth. Either Freightliner negotiates in good faith, the government steps in with a compulsory purchase order, United scrap the canopy and build something smaller, or this whole thing gets shelved for years. One of those four things needs to happen. The detailed feasibility studies are still ongoing. The tender process for architects is underway but not concluded. Every aspect of this project is in a bit of state of flux. Something will eventually get built. United need a new stadium, or a major renovation of Old Trafford. I'm not sure that can happen anymore, after years of neglect, and that much might be undeniable. Whether it's Foster's grand vision, a stripped-down version without the canopy, or something else entirely remains anybody's guess. This is the reality of mega projects. Grand visions meet hard negotiations, and sometimes financial reality sets in. United fans shouldn't hold their breath for breaking ground anytime soon. I suppose at least the conversation is happening, and something will eventually happen. The question is what form it will take, and how long we'll be waiting.